Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for joining the show today in this beautiful Saturday, April 15th. I'm your host, Coach Paul Tripoli. We have a special edition of Coach's Corner today as my three older brothers, as you can see, are joining the show. I'll start out with my oldest brother, Phil, down below there. Greg is up in the corner to the right, my second oldest brother. And, of course, Greg was on a couple months ago. And my brother Scott, the hockey player, is to his right. After we have our little live shout-out show here, we're going to have an interview with sports agent Ferrell Elliott. That's right. He's been in there for, 40 years he's been doing it. So it's a great interview. We caught up to him last week. So stay tuned after this edition that we'll have him. We lost Phil. We don't know what happened to him. Oh, he's back. Hang on. Let me try to get him on the show. Phil, don't be touching any buttons. There he is.
Jan called me.
All right, here we are, man. Let's start out with Phil, my oldest brother. Played golf. He's the golfer. Played golf at Virginia Tech. And, is 66 years old and shot your age last year. Phil, is that more special to you than winning the club championship for 6 decades in a row?
I think it'd have been more special if I'd have shot my age when I was 59. But in answer to your question, no, I think one of the hardest things to do athletically, at least that I've tried, is win a golf tournament. So it's very difficult, especially when you're in the lead and protecting the lead and coming down the last few holes to try to make a good swing. So it's a learned experience.
So you won the Jerry Ash Memorial. Was that one of your most special times, especially after her mom passed away?
Yeah, I think that was because that was right when she was starting the last stages of that, and I was a rainstorm the last round, and I was ahead by a couple, and I had to eagle the 16th hole, and then win it in sudden death. So that was a good win. State senior amateur had a real good tournament, was leading there, and didn't end up winning. And the senior AIM championship, when I won that the first time out. But I think it's always special when you win your club championships, whether it was at the Oswego Country Club or the Elms. I think it is. There's a certain element of bragging rights that it affords you.
Yeah, I think that's the most lasting legacy that you'll leave. I want to give a shout out to all our friends at the Elms. Hey, everybody at the Elms Golf Course. That's to win the club championship for 6 decades. I guess you won it when you were 18 or 19 is the first time?
18, and then that was back in 74. And then I won it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you won it 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and you won it a couple of years ago. Wow. Yeah. All right, so Phil's the oldest, okay, and I have a younger brother theory that I would have never made it at Alabama or in the NFL without my older brothers. Phil was the meanest one of the three. I don't know about the 4, but the 3 is the meanest one. And Scott and I were usually the recipients of that torture, although you and Greg did get into some battles. I remember playing the gator game, the alligator game, when we were younger. And I don't know, I must have been 4 or 5, Scott 6, 7, or 8. And you're at that torture age of 12 or 13.
Yeah.
We'd jump around from furniture to furniture, and if our foot hit the ground, you'd grab our calves and just squeeze the hell out of it and say, gator bite. Is that why my calves are so big to this day?
That's why my hands are so strong.
Scott, what do you remember about that game?
I had you guys stepping and fetching. You were just running around there. It was pretty good.
I just trying to be quicker than you so that I wasn't the first one to be caught.
Well, that's an attribute I'm never going to be accused of having. I'll tell you.
That's like that old theory about, the bear running and two guys running into the bear. And, they said, let's run. And the other guy said, well, I only have to be as fast as you. Faster. Oh my gosh. But you were thin as a high school player. The weightlifting wasn't real big in the early 70s, late 60s. You had a great arm. You could really fire the ball, man. And believe me, I've seen some quarterbacks before. But you grew to after high school, you grew 210 pounds.
Yeah, when I got in college, we of course, at the training center at Virginia Tech, we had a lot of access to some resources that we didn't before, and started to realize that. Then I shot up, and all of a sudden I'm 210 pounds, 205 pounds, and all through college.
But you grew 3 inches, right?
What's that?
You grew 3 inches or so.
Yeah, a couple of inches too. Yeah, I mean, if I'd have been this size in high school, I'd have definitely probably gone somewhere and played football.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. You got to see Pete Hallahan play. He was
Pete
amazing.
Actually backed me up when I was a senior. Pete was a freshman on the team.
God.
And then he started after that, and but he was an All-American. I mean, he's just 6'5". He could throw it 70 or 80 yards, and just a great all-around athlete. If he didn't make it there, he definitely would have made it in basketball, because as a freshman, he started with us on the basketball team.
Yeah, Digger Phelps at Notre Dame wanted him to play basketball.
Oh yeah, he was going to be double slotted everywhere he went. Really.
He could high jump 6'6" too. He was an amazing track athlete.
He's just a freak. He was one of those generational freaks.
All right, let's move to my second oldest brother, Greg. We had Greg on the show a couple months ago. He's the Emmy Award-winning co-producer of Let 'Em Know You Were There, the triple-double story of Jim Tucker. And we also talk about Fleetwood Walker, Moses Fleetwood Walker, a beautiful story that guy was. Greg, it's good to see you again. You're the artistic one, actor, singer, dancer. Well, maybe stretching dancer a little bit. You were in a lot of musicals. You did a lot of plays. You acted in a lot of roles. You did some off-Broadway musicals. I got 2 questions for you. I don't think I've asked you in a while. What was your favorite musical, and what was your favorite part to play?
Oh God, that was like so many years ago. 50 years ago. I don't know. Probably my favorite musical is one that I was never in. So
come on, you did like 10 musicals. You were in one of them?
What?
You did like 8 or 10 musicals.
Ones I got paid for. So
yeah.
Right?
My Fair Lady.
I know my 2 favorites were Guys and Dolls and South Pacific that he was in. But,
oh yeah, West Side Story. Yeah, I remember going to those and just watching the rehearsals, wishing I could do that. I tried, but I wasn't very good at it. All right, Greg's got his master's in business from the University of Pittsburgh. Got into banking for a little while, international business. And you're also an historian. You ran the Syracuse Onondaga Historical Society for like 14 years. What did you like best about being a historian? Because you really grew that museum, and you made a museum and all sorts of things. Talk a little bit about that, Greg.
Yeah, it was a great, company that was a diamond in the rough. It had a lot of great stories, but they just weren't telling them. So for me, it was great because most of my career had been in finance and business, and it gave me the opportunity to dip my toe into more creative stuff that I liked, writing, researching, publishing, filmmaking, museum design and development. So it was all a lot of fun. I mean, building and designing new museums. I built 4 museums, and publishing, writing was great. You know, working with some great authors and famous authors and people like David Fisher and getting a book on the New York Times, Amazon.com bestseller list, best #1 on the history, and then the filmmaking. You know, making a lot of films to tell people's stories and stories about great stories like the one that we told about Joe Tucker and the Syracuse Nats and the 455 championship season, the 24-second shot clock that changed the game of basketball forever. That was born on the back of a napkin in a bowling alley, and so they're, you know, great stories, and the only way to tell them is to get them out to the public. So I started a magazine and published a lot of books and contributed to a lot of books and made a lot of films and built a lot of exhibits and things and told some great stories.
I think it was probably more fulfilling for you to work in that, because you had such a positive impact on other people and other events and other people's memories.
You know, the business experience that I had to a nonprofit situation. So we learned to make money from the collections, you know, taking designs and things and partnering with a retail establishment. We created a whole retail outlet. So we had four brick and mortar stores and a big online store, and developed products from our collections, like Congress beer, you know, great popular beer pre-prohibition, and we got the trademark and all the rights and all the necessary things to recreate that historic beer. And so the organization now makes a percentage of every beer that's sold, and it's just getting more and more and more popular. It's a licensing deal that the organization has no expense related to it, but it makes a nice income from that beer. All I have to do is promote it and drink it at this point.
Yeah, it was a personal transformational shift for you too. You had to change industries, change business. That takes guts, but you don't risk it. There's no biscuit. You got a big biscuit from changing professions like that when you're 45, 50 years old. I admire that. It takes guts. All right. So you were not a big sports fan like the rest of the family was. All the boys, and dad was a nut. Did it drive you crazy that we're all into sports and you weren't?
No, I just played different sports, you know, than you guys. Tennis, skiing, and
oh yeah, right.
Great skier.
But yeah, I didn't. I wasn't great at the team sport because I didn't have patience with other people who.
he was pretty good JV football player.
But I had the size that Phil lacked, so you know they pushed me into football and put me on the line, and I had, you know, it was fun because I had some success at it, but I wasn't enjoying the actual sport. So eventually, conflicted with other things that I wanted to do, like travel and also, you know, those other activities that I was involved in allowed me to travel a lot, because you know, those the bands and the orchestras and the choirs, all that stuff. You know, they went to Europe and traveled around the United States, so it scratched a couple itches that I had. So
you lived all over. We're actually Scott was talking about it last night.
I ended up winning an Emmy for a sports documentary. So I used, you know, my love of sports in a different.
Yeah, Scott was talking about it last night. You've lived all over. You've lived in Milan, Italy for 7 years, LA, New York when 9/11 happened.
London.
I was freaking out trying to call you, couldn't get a hold of you.
Called me in my office that morning. I was about to go into a meeting with a guy whose office was in the World Trade Center. I had just gotten to New York, a whole bunch of people. It was just easier if people came to my office instead of me trying to go all over, because getting around that city logistically is a nightmare. So, Scott was the one who called me and said, "Hey, did you see what, you know, a plane just flew into the World Trade Center?" So that's what I got flipped on the television, And as we were talking, the other plane flew in, and that's when I knew something was up. It wasn't just a freak accident.
Well, let's talk about Mom a little bit, because she was such an influence on all of us, but especially you, Greg. She was the musician. She played the piano or organ that we had, and she loved the arts, and she always talked about being well balanced, right?
Well, you got to remember, we had to play a sport every season, pick a sport, and Mom, required that we learn to read music and play a musical instrument and speak a foreign language. So she, focused on those things. Dad focused on the other. I think it was all just about keeping us busy.
I was the worst musician. Okay. Not the worst singer though. Scott gets that award.
No doubt.
He can't carry a tune in a bucket, the poor guy.
Like a rusty barn door.
Scott was always the peacemaker, though. When Scott and I were close, we shared a bedroom. You guys shared the other bedroom. You guys were like the odd couple, just fighting. Scott would be the peacemaker, and I'd be the observer. I'm just like, who's getting a good shot in, who's not? How do you move right there in that situation?
We honed our fighting skills there.
We did some damage to those houses, though,
No
man.
doubt.
All the garage windows were knocked out.
Holes through doors,
Through the bedroom door. I couldn't get in. He locked me out.
All right, my second oldest brother, my closest to me, Scott, was a captain of the RIT hockey team, and was an overachiever, man. Just a scrappy player, and that's what you can get in hockey. You can get the high energy, high attitude, great team guy, involved and be a productive member of the team. Scotty, talk about your first memory of playing hockey, and then we'll talk about RIT.
Well, I remember starting out, and I had a potential breakaway, and I overskated the puck in my first year.
Yeah, missing a breakaway is almost as bad as missing a layup in basketball.
That was my first.
Oh my gosh, worst injury you had, and I think it might have been when Mom and Dad and I went to watch you play, and you frustrated somebody, put him in the penalty box, and I guess he couldn't cool down in 2 minutes because they came out and charged you from the penalty box all the way to the corner of the boards, and then knocked you out and layered to the face. That's how you got the nickname Scarface Scarcella.
Yeah, I think I was 13 years old and probably about 85, 90 pounds. And that's the last time I got hurt playing hockey. After that, I started lifting weights in high school and never missed a game or a practice through 3 years of hockey. So I was pretty proud of that. So
you never missed a game or a practice?
Yeah, back then.
Was that possible?
You never missed a game or a practice?
Never missed a game or a practice through 3 years of varsity. So
how about when you got your lip taken off?
No, that was when I was 14 years old, and we didn't have face masks back then. Some kid high sticked me, and I got 33 stitches in the face. But I finished my shift.
You got to finish.
Damn right you did.
Right? I mean, I collapsed the lung one time in Canada, but I had to finish the game, even though I couldn't breathe. You got to finish
about how we had to pick a sport each season, and we all played different sports, and Mom and Dad just chauffeured us from the hockey rink to the basketball court to the ski slopes to the every weekend, every night for practice, things like that. It was we wouldn't have been able to do that if they weren't willing to back up what they said. You can pick whatever sport you want, but you got to play a sport. And we couldn't have picked more diverse sport.
And one comment I want to make about that to a lot of parents that are out there is I remember our parents going and sitting and watching practice. Parents now don't have the patience. They want to go watch a game. Now the kids have about 2 practices before they start the regular season. They don't have any of the, the innate skills and the basics. And I think a lot of it's because parents don't have the patience to go. Dad would go and sit there and watch in a frozen ice rink at 5:30 in the morning, me at practice. And you don't get parents that want to sacrifice like that.
Or go to the game. Dad was either a ref or an ump or a coach, and mom ran the concessions.
Let's not forget.
Ran the clock.
All the success, Paulie, all the success Liverpool High School has had throughout the years in athletics, due in large part to Dominic's work. He started women's gymnastics. He started JV feeder program football.
Started the hockey team.
The community council basketball feeder program. We all ran the same plays and the same defenses all the way from there through high school.
He started
we had uniforms we made in the basement, ironing on numbers.
Yeah.
There was a lot that goes behind the scenes to making what Liverpool actually was.
Scott, tell the story about Dad starting the hockey team. Didn't even know how to skate. Tell that story, Scott.
And now there's thousands of kids involved in those leagues every year in Liverpool, New York, and Dad started that all just so that we would have the opportunity to play the team sport and keep kids busy.
Yep.
Forever booster
clubs, the athletic booster clubs, the fundraisers, all of that. We wouldn't have been able to do any of that unless all those parents were involved and dedicated to that.
I mean, you still see that today to some extent, but not the all-encompassing effort to actually float
and they had
an
fun
athletic program when the budget got turned down.
Parties, to make all the popcorn for the next day, the Saturday morning football game. So
Scott told the story how he started the hockey team at Liverpool and didn't even know how to skate.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't know anything about the sport.
Yeah.
Had to learn about the sport rules and.
All right. Last question, guys. What did y'all think about your little brother, who wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, going to play a 2-time national champ Alabama? Did you think I was just lost my mind? I mean, Phil likes to tell the joke. He thought I would probably play at State Penn, not at Penn State.
The first thing was you weren't not the sharpest tool. You just didn't apply your effort in that direction. You put it elsewhere. So it wasn't that you couldn't have gotten better grades. You just didn't.
I think, it was, for me, the Alabama experience was the most memorable. I mean, I've lived all over the world. I've been to every sporting event that you could possibly imagine. Sat in the players' box when my friend won the championship Wimbledon singles title. But the Alabama football experience, home game, was something. I've been to the Olympics. It was just an amazing experience, and to have your brother be kind of like, the star in the cover of the magazine and all of the accolades. It was exciting. All around that stadium is like a festival, and they take their football seriously. It was like an experience I'll never forget, and that I've never had in any similar experience in any other kind of sport or venue. It was that was
great.
I have to second that. I think what stands out to me was, I guess, the fact that you went down and all that, you had some big balls anyway, because we've been in some scraps before. And so I knew that part of you could handle. I thought that they would definitely try to beat you down and run you out of town. And that part you could handle too. But for me, mostly was senior year, Alabama, Auburn. When I went down with Dominic, Mom was too sick to travel. She's a couple months away from passing.
Right.
And
winning that game, we celebrated.
Yeah. And then when you went out to the middle of the field for, the captains out there.
Yeah.
Look over at Dominic. Dominic's got tears running down.
We had some good times rendezvousing in Tampa too when you were there. When we were all living
Actually,
the world, different parts from each other, different parts of the country. So it was not only a great opportunity to kind of, family reunion thing, but we also had some memorable post-game experiences.
How about Canada?
That's probably more famous for my post-game than my pre-game or during game. All right, guys. Thanks for coming down. Thank you for being on the show. I love you guys. Without you, I wouldn't be here. And I'll see you in a little bit. We're going to take a commercial break for all the great sponsors. And then Ferrell Elliott's going to join the show with a recording. You don't want to miss that. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just about 2.5, 3 minutes.
Arbitrium Consulting for all your fencing, landscaping, pressure washing, tree trimming needs. Call 850-483-0350 for your free estimates. Serving Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, Destin, Perdido, Gulf Shores, Foley, and the entire Gulf Coast. Arbitrium Consulting is owner-operated, fully licensed and insured. Call today, 850-483-0350, the official landscaper of Coach's Corner.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We sell fun for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than the simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
For over 40 years. And he was my agent back in the day when I played 2 years in the CFL, 1 year in the NFL. Ferrell, thank you for joining the show today.
Oh, Trip, it's such a pleasure to see you. It's always great to talk with you. Our danger when we talk is that we start talking and the clock just runs and runs and runs. So, you know, we'll have to temper some of these responses largely by me. It says scrolling across the screen, Ferrell, Elliott, sports agent. I think at one time, I think at one time that was true. I think it's just, you know, it now, someone asked me about baseball the other day, and my response was, you mean what Babe Ruth used to play? Because, you know, truly I am a football agent. And now in this world, we have our NFL. The week after the Super Bowl, XFL started. The USFL is getting ready to take up where they leave off and will start their season next week, right after Easter. The Canadian Football League, which you participated in addition to your NFL career, will start in June, and then we'll be back to the NFL before it concludes. So I've gone through the calendar to tell you that there's a football game of interest every weekend. So I'm not sure there are any other sports.
You just do football.
Just do football, my friend.
Well, isn't it beautiful that these new? I'm an XFL fan. I watch it. I think it's really good football. Do you have clients there in the XFL and USFL, and do you have some in the CFL? NFL?
Yeah, I have a client in every league there is to play. Now, I don't have a lot in the XFL, and I look forward to changing that. However, many of the guys in the XFL are into the proverbial twilight of their careers, Trip. I have a young player from Tampa, Florida. Florida is so good to me. From Tampa, Florida. His name is KJ Sales. He's had a hard time getting started. He played at South Florida, but he has found a home with the DC Defenders. And it was very intuitive early on that we would speak with the DC Defenders. They're run by a fellow named Vaughn Hutchins, who's an excellent player in the league. He was a Raider, a Colt, probably a better Raider. He's a very good general manager. He and his head coach have put together a good team that was going to contend. And KJ wears number 9. He'll be sidelined this weekend with a hamstring, but that's a team that I do expect to play in the championship game. So it's been exciting. And, you know, all new leagues of football, they get better as the season goes on. So if people haven't tuned in yet, it's not too late.
Well, the offenses have caught up with the defenses, you know, because the training camp was only 5-6 weeks. You know, defenses are going to dominate, and now they're scoring points. So for all you people bettors out there, the under was good the first half of the year. Now the over looks good.
It does. And certain teams, even the Orlando team, which had a hapless start, beat the DC Defenders this past week to notch their first win of the season. So, you know, it's just like the NFL any given Sunday, although it may be in the XFL Saturday, Sunday. There's a couple of Monday games in there too.
Ferrell, let's talk about the art of persuasion. Now, you know, it's new. Now college players, they have different interests, and of course, the NIL and all that going on. Is your experience, your certifications, or your good looks? What do you do to persuade? What do you do to persuade players to come on board with you? And we'll talk about Lamar Jackson and all the things that a sports brings. But
you know, that's really the crux of it, Paul. And you know, you're recruiting, so I can probably get on the phone with almost any prospect for the upcoming draft. And we're already, when I say upcoming draft from an agent's perspective, we're talking about 2024, because 2023, the players are all represented. And some that didn't sign with me, some that returned to school, and some that did. And, you know, I maintain relationships with all of them. But to your question, you know, sometimes in those conversations, I can talk to the player and try to understand him and who he is and what he wants and what his expectations are. And the first thing I try to do, Trip, is the thing that was very obvious in our first conversation some 36 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah, 35. Yeah, 35. I'm aging us a little bit, but yeah, 35.
35 or 36 years ago, I tried to establish, does the player love football? because I love football, and football doesn't always love me, and it doesn't always love the player, but I love football. So I want to establish that first, and I want to see, and it doesn't mean that he doesn't have to love, that he can't love other things, or, but most of these guys are young. And when I say young, I mean young from an experience standpoint. They're young in age and they're young from experience, because so much of their life has been dedicated to athletics. And so what I try to do is talk about what their expectations are in an agent and what my expectations are for them. And I get myself in a little trouble there, because I start talking to some of the players about hard work. And some of the players have the fallacy that they've somewhat already arrived, and that the movement into the NFL is reward for the hard work. And I just say they're getting introduced to the hard work. So sometimes I'm not telling them necessarily what they want to hear, but I am telling them what they need to hear. And at least from my perspective. Right. And it's helped me in the locker room, because players say, I didn't sign with you, but you sure were right about some of the things you were telling me, because I'm trying to talk about what's going to happen and, where you're going to be 5 years from now. And a good agent is interested in the future, because the player's got a lot of things to take care of on a day-to-day basis.
Beautiful. That takes me to my next question. Joey Jones and I were talking about Jeremy Reeves, an all-pro special teams player from Catholic High and University of South Alabama, and the power of his mental strength. He mentioned how he isn't the fastest, strongest, or most talented, but he has all the intangibles, always positive, enthusiastic. The love for football that you mentioned was an important thing in the recruits that you look for. Do you look at those characteristics as well, the mental toughness and the perseverance and maybe the struggles that the kid has gone through? Because Jeremy broke his back his senior year in high school, and somehow the good Lord, he prayed about it every night, put a Bible on his chest. I mean, just an amazing kid, and he happened to receive a miracle. But Joey Jones stuck with him and gave him that scholarship, and he turned into the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year his senior year. Fantastic. Do you look for guys like that?
Yes, you do. And, having the will is one thing. You must also have the skill. Right. But a lot of those players, like Joey's athlete, those players are going to be passed over in the draft, or they may go late, or you get an opportunity to do some true agenting very early in the relationship with the teams, because many times you'll have to choose the teams, and you have to understand what your player can do, and most importantly, what the team is looking for. Last year, I had a player. His name is Tyreek McAllister. He trained with Clifford Brown down in Florida, down in Tampa at Athlete Innovations. Cliff has been a real great contributor to players, not only my clients, but many, many players in that area. But Tyreek, we started, Paul, he was 163 pounds, 5'9.5", with a track background. He had moved from wide receiver to running back. This was a player that we knew that when the NFL looked at him, they were going to say, well, what's his contact balance going to be? He played at Charleston College. Now, Trip, do you know where Charleston College is?
No, sir.
West Virginia. Now, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, which borders West Virginia. I've been in the agent business for 40 years, and I did not know where Charleston College was. So I didn't know where the school was, and I recognized it. And the school didn't have a pro day, and I had to find him another pro day, and we had to get weight on him. He went from 163 pounds to at the pro day that we eventually found, which is a whole nother story. The pro day that we eventually found at Shepherd College. You know what Shepherd College is?
I don't.
Well, fortunately, 3 NFL teams knew where Shepherd College was. One of them was the Denver Broncos. And that scout, a young scout by the name of Dion Tucker, he and I agreed that Tyreek would be a player for Denver, and Tyreek reported at 190 pounds. So in 4 months, He was able to gain 27 pounds. He still ran like the wind. He was on the roster, did not play this year, but expect things for him. So sometimes it's a long process and a long reward. And, it's not every player in the NFL has the red carpet rolled out to them. Most of them don't. And, this was an example of a player that I'm very, very proud of what he's accomplished so far. Yeah. And I look forward to next year.
Yeah. It's perseverance, right?
Oh, exactly. And and so his problem was that, I'm fast, but I'm small. And, we can't stretch him, but we sure could get some muscle on him. And we did that by introducing him to a nutrition program. And these are things that, your nutrition program when you were at Alabama was to go through the line twice in the cafeteria, if you wanted to. But now it's a little bit more scientific.
Yeah, it really is. The nutrition and the workouts are much more scientific now. I wasn't your best client, but I probably wasn't your worst. But
I will correct you with that, my friend. I will correct you with that. You were by far one of the motivating factors that's kept me in the business for all these years. And, you had a great college career and gave me an opportunity once to talk to Paul Bryant. And the Bear talked to me for a while about you, and that was always a pleasure. You came with the stamp of approval of Alabama, University of Alabama, and they went all the way to New York to get you. So that means they had to skip over dozens of players that could play football to go to New York to find you. And one of my proudest moments is I went to a CFL game, and there you were running out of the locker room, leading the team out of the locker room, playing in a great situation. I'll tell listeners this. You were a safety in the CFL, a position that they normally reserve for a Canadian football player. The rosters are balanced, X number of imports, X number of Canadians. And I never liked the way that one club would move you on and off the active roster, to the point that I got so aggravated about it, I turned my back on that league for 3 or 4 years. We called it the Tripoli effect.
No way.
You have the Bermuda Triangle off the coast of Florida. We had the Tripoli effect because, some of the CFL guys would call and I would just hang up on them, but finally I got over it because I see that you survived it and it was okay.
Oh my God, Ferrell! Well, you're too kind because I walked on at Alabama. They really didn't want me. I had to push my way in.
Tried to send you back to New York.
Yeah, tried to send me back, and I almost went back, but I never did go back. Actually,
you didn't.
I married 2 Alabama girls. That's how much I liked it. Not at the same time, mind you.
No.
But the CFL was interesting. We only had 15 Americans on the team at that time.
It was crazy.
And you have
and that's what you talk about, the explosive of that's a good point, because you had 15 Americans on the team. That number has grown. In the NFL, your time at Tampa, you were on a roster with 45 active players and some players on injured reserve. Now we have an active roster of 53. We have 16 men on the practice squad, something you never got to take advantage of. And we have another group of injured reserve, which moves on and off of the injured reserve, as it used to be in your day. Once a player went on injured reserve, he was gone for the season. So it was they were hesitant to put players on injured reserve. So there's a lot of walking wounded on the sidelines. So in the football numbers that exist today, you would have found
almost twice as much, Ferrell.
Yeah, you would have found a much.
There were 45-man rosters with 28 teams. That's like 1,200 guys in the league. Now there's 32 teams with 53-man rosters, but 17 on the team. So that's 70 guys.
Yeah, it's completely different, and you can and it is much more competitive because the colleges are producing better, more prepared athletes. But still, the point plays that anyone who made it in the 80s, early 90s was really a football player.
Ferrell, big changes in college sports.
Mm-hmm.
How are you as player representative? How are you adapting to that? Obviously, you have to go after the college kids now instead of the graduates, the seniors or college graduates.
it is opened up. It's good for the athletes that now they can be can be compensated as part of the program. I think the listeners, that seem to be, they read in the paper about these magnificent deals going to certain college athletes, especially at some of your Florida schools, and especially among the women. And it's a great thing. What you have to remember is we're still waiting for a lot of those funds to sort of trickle down to the group of each player. But schools are doing better with that. There's over at Central Florida this week, they just announced that they would be that they would retain a consultant group to handle that aspect of it. And very quickly, it moved away from individual agents like myself who were gearing up to work in NIL, and I can still do that, but it moved away from that. Coincidentally, I was on a flight to Las Vegas where the athletic directors and the NCAA and the fundraisers associated with schools, they were all headed for a convention. I was on a very early morning flight, and there was all these people that I recognized, not perhaps who they were, but that they were in the business. And I sat next to a woman, and she broke down the whole thing to me, and they were very nervous. This is past summer. They were very nervous that their booster group would change and deal independently and outside of the athletic department. So they caught up with that very quick, and that was their plan. And they're controlling that money to come into the schools now. So, when you talk to a player, chances are he might be a little bit more comfortable. He might have money in his pocket that allows his family to participate in viewing his play. It might allow him to have more freedom to do things. It's not making him necessarily wealthy, but it is making him comfortable. And that, I think that's a great improvement.
I do too. All right, let's get into Lamar Jackson. Should he be represented by someone who has learned the craft, gone to school, got your certifications? You're professional, and you have to be knowledgeable in different areas like negotiating skills, financial acumen, and all these professions. You got to be part of a lawyer. You have to know lawyer speak and legalities. Why do guys, especially players, think that they can handle something like that when they're a player?
Well, very few do, especially in the rookie world. And Lamar has been in that case since he was a rookie. He turned away the idea of having agents, and many came to him. I investigated and realized that his head wasn't in it and took him, immediately off my list. And we talked about players that don't have the red carpet rolled out for them. Lamar did. And to a degree, it still does. And when you have to fight in representation off the field, along with your players' activities on the field, you really value exactly how difficult it is to get in this league. Naturally, he's taken care of himself. He's competed, but he's had all the opportunities, and now those opportunities seem to be withering away from him, where the fan that would look at that would just scratch their head. And so from an agent perspective, yes, he's missing the guidance that starts very early on. It starts at day one. A player came up to me and he was talking to me, and he said, how many other players, one of my clients, he says, how many other players are you managing this year? And I loved that word. It's not representing, it was managing. And because that's very much what you do early on, and you develop a nuance with letting the player understand that he's not necessarily dealing with the NFL. He's dealing with 32 different philosophies, 32 different cultures, personalities that all have input in that team. Sometimes it's very easy to see who has the most input. At New England, it's Belichick. At Dallas, it's the owner, Jerry Jones.
Almost like a decision maker. You got to find the decision maker.
You got to find the decision maker. In some teams, there's multiple decision makers.
Right. Right.
And so each team has a nuance. And the fact that someone has told him that he doesn't need representation, it's hurt his education and understanding of the business. And look, the player's not the only one that's learning, but representing Lamar would be a true gift because you would learn as an agent as well. I'm trying to learn something every day. And so when we look at Lamar, we see it all. It started with a drip, and now it is a deluge of disappointment. And, I've noticed it very, very early on when you look at the advertising and sponsorship for NFL quarterbacks, which has grown exponentially, and the money that's off the field is overwhelming. And I can give you many examples of that without boring you about numbers, but it's available to so many players by identifying what their off the field interests are and then merging them with someone and making a match. And it can, Paul, you watch a lot of football, lots of television, a lot of media. Have you ever seen Lamar in an ad?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So there's the first thing.
There's the answer right there. Yeah. Good point, Ferrell. That's a great point. The money has gotten huge. He's not going to get, the money the Cleveland Browns gave him. There's just the money has gone up exponentially. But
you're talking about the Watson.
The owners let it happen. They did let it happen, and now they're trying to pull back. And they let the cat out of the bag because the money has gone. They're trying to compete, and but they could have had a salary cap years ago. The money has gotten so big that, for instance, our player, Joey and I's a player. I coached Jeremy Reeves in high school, and he makes more money in one game than I did in the whole year. So that's the kind of thing you're dealing with when you're a player. You can't be messing around. It leads to another question. These GMs are all different, and you were talking a little bit about how every team is different. So it's obviously some teams are harder to deal with than others, maybe because there are multiple decision makers. But talk a little bit about that.
I think when a team drafts a client of yours, everybody's on the same page. But when you get to the second contract, you're in a situation of dealing with the culture of the team. Do they value what your player brings to the table? We can look at the Los Angeles Chargers. In my mind, if I'm running the Los Angeles Chargers, I would have extended Ezekiel Elliott last year during the season sometime. It's not the number of touchdowns, the prolific number of touchdowns that are scored in the last 2 years by this player. It's not incidental to his talent. You can't replicate that or repeat it. And if you even can, you're going to have to spend tremendous amounts of draft capital to do so. So why not get this deal done? So, that would be frustrating to me. He's represented by a great agent, a young man named Cameron Weiss, who, unlike me, works across every sport and has built a significant business. And, he, just like we've been talking about with my Tyreek McAllister example, you probably don't know, I think is Western Colorado is where Austin hails from, is where he played college ball. You probably never heard of that, but look what he has become. So, I think that, and they're going about it the wrong way. They said, well, can we just go out and see what's available and see if you want to match it? And so, and so everybody there's on the same page. Everybody understands what they're trying to accomplish, but each culture, nuance, dealing with the situation goes back to the Lamar situation. One of the things he's done with himself is he made a statement. He disclaims it, but there was a friend or an associate or a business associate that was making calls on his behalf. And the NFL can't deal with anyone who's not a certified agent from the NFLPA.
Right.
And so they announced, hey, we're getting calls from a guy that's not on the agent list about Lamar Jackson. And so letters went out to all the teams, says, don't talk to this player. It's a fine. Or don't talk to this representative.
Right.
It's a fine. And Lamar comes back to the press, and he doesn't say, you know what, I wasn't completely aware of that. I understand it. We were just trying to get some conversation started. He comes back and says, no, that guy didn't make those calls. Well, now he's ended up calling several NFL general managers that they're falsifying claims. And so you see a landslide of nonsense. And so that's how you get it, and things can come from a team too, that they hold back, in Lamar's case. Lamar was he gets criticism for not traveling with the team to an away playoff game. And he was advised by the medical staff, because of the swelling he was experiencing, to stay off the airplane, which is a legitimate, and that has never been shared until now. And as an agent of that player, you probably want to ask the team, hey, in your press conference, state that your training staff has advised Lamar that he not attend the game because of the air travel could disrupt.
Good point, Ferrell.
So there's so many things, and none of this is rocket science, but all of it is thought and action. And, Paul, it's like anything else in the world. How you ask for it usually has a lot to do with how quickly you get it.
You've represented, hundreds of guys over the years, and in all the leagues across. Is Europe still anything going on in Europe with American football, or is that pretty much? I know they did have a European league, and they were trying to grow it the last couple of years.
They do, and it is on occasion. Also, Japan. I try to. One of the things that I've done, and it's done more out of lack of time. There's plenty of young agents that I meet on the road that I admire, and I say, you know what, I've got a guy that can help you with that. That's got some things going on over there, that knows a little. And I make the introduction. The agent appreciates it, and the player has an agent that can put a little more attention to it. Now that doesn't mean that I don't take on projects that. Do we have time for me to tell you about a couple of them from last year?
Absolutely.
Oh, last year I signed 2 what I call Division II, just because you didn't know what they were, so I lumped them into Division II. I found out later they were NAIA quarterbacks. One played at Lindsey Wilson College. I don't think you know where that is. And another one played at Reinhardt University. You might have a chance.
Nope.
Lindsey Wilson is in Kentucky, and Reinhardt is in Atlanta. And a kid called me from Lindsey Wilson, and what I liked about him was the way he spoke about his skills and what he was looking for at opportunity. He's an undersized quarterback. His name was Cameron Dukes. I sent him to Arena Ball. He played very well, and what did not surprise me is he's a natural leader. And he now has a contract with the Toronto Argonauts in a situation that he I think he will likely make the team, and he will get to play, and that could be a good career for him. The second one from Reinhardt College is from the Tennessee, Kentucky, eastern part of the state line. He's from over there. Reinhardt College is in Atlanta, and he played in a offensive scheme that would be reminiscent of the early 60s college football. You can see, you get a hold of a little film, and you can see the athletic talents of this player. A terrific athlete, good size. His name is Billy Hall. And in Canada, they use a quarterback, a short yardage quarterback, a change of pace quarterback that actually gets on the field and plays. You can count on that player having 15 plays a game. And I thought Billy would be terrific for that. And he signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who is the the Grey Cup champion for two of the last 3 years in the CFL. And I think he's got a good path not only to be on the roster, but to make the field this year. It is very accomplished, a very great sense of accomplishment. It took a year. It took a lot of phone calls. I first tried to put Dukes at Winnipeg and Billy somewhere else, and they worked out, and nobody. But we kept going at it, and now they're in good positions. And as an agent, you want to have that big deal that everyone reads about in the paper, and you know that helps with your business purpose in football. But you know, here's two guys that if I don't get involved, they might not play. They might get frustrated. No other agent particularly wanted to talk to them. No one would call them back. Billy Hall came to me from McLeod Bethel Thompson. If we have time to talk about him, that would be interesting. But McLeod.
Well, Ferrell, that's what I love about you. You take these guys who have little chance, and I wasn't drafted in 12 rounds. I was a free agent. You always were looking.
Wow, 12 rounds.
Always looking to find a home for me. And we went to the Browns. I do have a bone to pick with you about that. The Cowboys, I think, were offering me $2,000, and the Browns gave me $1,000. Now I could have played for George O'Leary, Bear Bryant, and Tom Landry. Ferrell, why are you going to? I always admired you for finding the little guys home and keeping the dream alive. Yeah. You don't have you're not out there yelling, "Show me the money."
Oh yes, I am.
Yeah, right.
You had the $2,000 contract, Paul, so I couldn't yell it at you. But no. That movie got a lot of things right. And I thought that was well done. That movie got a lot of things. Jerry Maguire.
Maguire. All right. So how about the toughest player you ever represented? And now remember, in Toronto, I played with a collapsed lung, so be careful who you pick.
Yeah.
But you've had smart players. I mean, you've represented hundreds, and you're still at it. And do you love it? Is that why you're still going, Ferrell? You just love it?
Oh, yeah. I love it. We were sitting around, I've got a lot of friends now that are pushing mid-60s, moving into 70s. Some of them are talking about retirement, and those talks began several years ago. And someone said, "Well, Ferrell, what are you going to do when you retire?" And one of them, I never had considered the question. But a close friend of mine said he's going to do about the same thing he's doing now, which is right. And I will probably, you'll probably hear of me at some football game that I was supposed to be at, and when the game was over, they had to haul me out or something like that. Paul, we talked about Florida. The state of Alabama has always been a great contributor to me in my life and football world. I think McLeod Bethel Thompson could about sum up what I've tried to accomplish with players. He has left Toronto after winning his second Grey Cup championship to come to the USFL. We wanted to look at the spring leagues, and contractual situations and a thumb injury essentially took the XFL out of play. So the USFL, and we didn't necessarily prefer either one. And when DiFilippo was named coach with the New Orleans Breakers, that became where we wanted to go play because he's wonderful working with the quarterback. So that became a natural home with McLeod. The reason we want to talk about Birmingham is that's where the New Orleans team, along with the Birmingham team, that's their home field as in the way the USA. But McLeod was a player who I had an Arena Football League player, a receiver, and I said, well, I better figure out who's going to be throwing the ball to him. And I see this McLeod Bethel Thompson, a rookie quarterback, 6'4". And I said, why is such a young player with all these skills starting? in arena ball, and he had a genius head coach who at Sacramento State, the player transferred it in from UCLA, and the Sacramento State coach decided to start a 5'9" quarterback in a run pass option offense while leaving McLeod on the bench. And the teammates talked to McLeod about me, and he called me and he said, I understand that you could help me get out of the Arena League and into Canadian Football League. And I said, well, I understand that you're an NFL quarterback. And I know this kid probably thought that I had been drinking. He probably thought I was high because nobody had ever told him that he could play. The 49ers looked at him. They signed him. They kept him in camp a little while. They released him. I got him at Minnesota. He played at Minnesota. He true journeyman career throughout the NFL. And then he said, I want to play. I'm tired of holding the clipboard. He got 3 years in the NFL. He said, I want to play. We went to the CFL. We first went to Winnipeg, and we realized he wasn't going to play there. And so we moved on to Toronto, and success came. So he's the kind of the listeners want to say, well, I want to get behind a player that doesn't play for the money, plays for the love of the game. He wants to win. He wants to win in the USFL, and he wants to get back to the NFL and utilize that as a 33-year-old quarterback. And he's betting on himself, which he's always done. So that is the longest tenured client that I have. We've been together for 12 years, and I'll be headed to Birmingham next weekend to see him play there as the USFL kicks off their season. And then, I can't wait to schedule NFL travel, college football game travel. So, yes, love it. However football treats us, we're going to keep loving it.
We're going to keep loving it. I keep loving you, man. You do a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. It's such a noble thing. Agents, everybody talks about agents, but they don't see the agent that really works and grinds for the player like you do.
There's a lot of them out there, and there are some that make that are in it for different motivations, and that gives me somebody to sneer at once in a while. But it is, and anytime you want to talk football on that side of the business trip, I'll be thrilled to talk it with you.
All right, Ferrell, thank you for your input. Thanks for coming on Coach's Corner Show. We have to get together soon, man.
You got Joey Jones coming up soon.
Joey Jones is on the show today.
There is a player.
I want to thank Ferrell Elliott for coming on. He's a great sports agent and a great person. Thanks for watching the show, folks. That pretty much wraps it up. Don't forget, on Mondays, we do editions, Coach Trips Tips or the Bear Facts. One of the two. You're going to really enjoy these coaching tips. On Tuesday, if you missed part of the show today with Ferrell Elliott or my brothers, you can catch it Tuesday live on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel. Search Paul Tripoli, Coach's Corner. On Wednesdays, we're going to do Kids Corner or Sports Books Worth Reading segment on Wednesdays. Thursdays, Local Sports Report. So if you live anywhere here in Pensacola in the Panhandle, you want to tune in for that on Thursdays. But that'll wrap it up. I want to give a shout out. Thanks to Ferrell and my brothers for being on the show. Don't forget my great sponsors. I wouldn't be able to do this without Hill Kelly Dodge. Smart, knowledgeable, fair, and honest. That's what Miles Bentley and his team brings to that. I bought a Jeep a couple years ago. I love it. So nobody beats Hill Kelly deal. Nobody. Shout out to the Seiler Agency. They are one of my longtime sponsors from my original show 12 years ago. I wouldn't be here today. Talk about an insurance company that has integrity. They have it in spades. Loyal, experienced, diverse, whether you want car insurance, homeowners, insurance, even financial experts on site. Call the Seiler Agency. And also, I want to give a shout out to Pensacola Glass, Woody Waters. It's another inaugural sponsor of Coach's Corner. Boy, what a work ethic they have. They do a first-class job. Don't forget, They are the premier glass company, the clear choice for all your glass needs. Go to Pensacola Glass. But thanks again for watching. We'll talk to you soon.
Arbitrium Consulting for all your fencing, landscaping, pressure washing, tree trimming needs. Call 850-483-0350 for your free estimates. Serving Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, Destin, Perdido, Gulf Shores, Foley, and the entire Gulf Coast. Arbitrium Consulting is owner-operated, fully licensed and insured. Call today, 850-483-0350, the official landscaper of Coach's Corner.
Given the choice, we'd choose new over old anytime. Snap our fingers and undo years of wear and tear that every home endures. Thankfully, First Choice Home Improvement turns ugly into unugly almost overnight. First-rate materials, low prices. The transformation is unbelievable. First Choice Home Improvements, your unofficial headquarters for turning ugly into unugly. Call them today, 476-8887. Online at firstchoicehomeimprovements.com.
Your first choice is the best choice, so make your choice First Choice.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Step One works so hard to get you in the perfect car. Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step One Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step One supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step One Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.